Hi everyone. My girlfriend and her parents tried to humiliate me at their family reunion party. So, I reveal my true identity. Now they are panicking. I, 25M, have been running a small startup for 2 years, and it's been one wild ride. My father owns a big distribution company in our state, like a pretty massive operation with lots of employees. But I never flaunted that. My dad always said I needed to learn how to hustle on my own. He told me, go build your own path, don't expect handouts. I respected that so much that, for most of my life, I basically hid who my father was. I didn't want people treating me differently just because of his name. So, 2 years ago, I started my small business. It's not some fancy tech startup or anything. Think of a small chain of supply shops specializing in construction materials. Right when I launched it, I was dating this girl, 24F, who, at first, seemed super supportive. We'd been together about a year before I took the plunge into entrepreneurship. She'd say stuff like, I'm proud of you, and you got this, babe, and it really fueled me. But after about 6 months, when my business was still struggling, her attitude changed. She started complaining that I wasn't making as much as her friends' boyfriends, who had comfy 9-to-5 gigs. She'd roll her eyes whenever I talked about my new marketing plans or the ways I wanted to expand. It sucked, but I tried to cut her some slack because I assumed she was worried about our future. Her parents, though, were on a whole different level of condescending. They both worked at some big distribution company, always bragging about their stable jobs. Little did they know, the company they worked for belonged to my father. But they never bothered to actually ask what my family did, and I never volunteered the info. Her parents kept making subtle digs at me, calling my business a little project, and telling me I should just go get a real job. It was seriously annoying, but I forced a smile and ignored them because I didn't want drama. My own startup was barely making ends meet. Rent, loan repayments, employee salaries. I had bigger problems to focus on than arguing with a couple of smug assholes. So a few weeks ago, they invited me to their annual family reunion. I've been to one of these before and it was okay. Lots of food, random chatter, and a big crowd of relatives I didn't know. This time, though, my girlfriend kept warning me, dress well, don't look cheap, in this really snotty tone. I tried not to snap. On the day of the reunion, I showed up in a decent outfit, but from the moment I walked in, I could feel the stares. Her father greeted me with, "Oh, the business tycoon has arrived," and everyone around him snickered. It was basically open season on me. People I barely knew asked, "So your startup's still tiny? Or maybe you should do what her parents do, they've got a real career." My girlfriend was off to the side giggling with her cousins, not defending me at all. I was tempted to leave, but I'm stubborn. I stayed, thinking maybe this was all in my head, or it'd blow over. Then her parents grabbed a microphone to make these announcements about family achievements. New jobs, weddings, promotions, the usual. Suddenly, her mother goes, "We also have my daughter's boyfriend here, who is struggling with his little business. Good luck. Maybe one day he'll be as successful as the rest of us." I swear, I wanted the ground to swallow me up. They were publicly humiliating me, and I could see my girlfriend smiling like it was the funniest thing ever. Her father piped in with, "Keep hustling, kid. Hard work usually pays off eventually." That's when I snapped. I stood there, feeling my face burn, and finally said, "It's interesting you're mocking someone whose family basically signs your paychecks." The room went dead silent. Her father tried to laugh it off, asking what I meant. I took a slow breath and said, "Check who really owns your distribution company." The confusion on their faces morphed into panic. My girlfriend's mom was like, "What are you talking about?" And I just laid it out, "My father owns that entire company. I'm his son." You could hear people gasp. All those smirks vanished. Her father's eyes bulged. He started stuttering, "Your father? Wait, you're saying?" And I calmly nodded. My girlfriend stared at me like she couldn't process this. She mumbled, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" And I shot back, "Because you never asked. All you guys did was mock me for not making money." People in the family crowd were whispering and shuffling around, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. My girlfriend tried to put a hand on my shoulder and act all sweet. "Babe, it was just jokes. Nobody meant to hurt you. Let's just enjoy the party, okay?" I shrugged her hand off and told her to cut the crap. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You let your parents trash me in front of everyone. You never defended me." This wasn't some playful teasing. It was straight up humiliation. "We're done." The shock on her face was priceless. She started trembling, sputtering excuses like, "You're taking this too seriously." But I wasn't interested. I turned to her parents and said something like, "If you treated me like a human being instead of a punching bag, maybe you wouldn't be in this awkward position right now." Then I walked out. Everyone stood there in stunned silence. I half expected someone to chase me, but nobody did. Once I got in my car, my phone started blowing up, calls, texts, voicemails from my girlfriend, her parents, random cousins. I ignored them all. I was pissed and relieved at the same time. Pissed that it had to go down like that. Relieved that I didn't have to keep tolerating their crap. That night, I felt lighter, but I also wondered if I just created a huge nightmare for my father's company. Like, maybe her parents would retaliate at work or cause drama for him. A couple days later, my dad calls. He's pretty calm, like always. But he asked if something happened between me and two of his employees who'd been sending a flood of frantic emails about a misunderstanding. I sighed and explained the whole thing. He listened, then said, "They claim you threatened them." I told him, "No, they just realized who I am and freaked out." My dad said, "All right, I trust you." From their tone, it sounds like they're terrified of losing their jobs. I just rolled my eyes at the phone. All I did was tell them the truth. They publicly humiliated me, so I publicly revealed who they were messing with. My dad assured me he wouldn't fire them just because of personal drama. But he also hinted they'd been problems at work for a while. They had a track record of being rude to subordinates, ignoring rules, and complaining about company policies like they were immune to consequences. This stunt with me was not looking good for them. My ex-girlfriend started texting me non-stop, begging me to tell my father to go easy on her parents. She said stuff like they were just joking or don't ruin their livelihood. I didn't bother responding. I was done being their doormat. One night, my ex showed up at my apartment, banging on my door. When I finally opened up, she was sobbing, saying her parents were freaking out at work that they might lose their positions. She begged me to fix it because it was all just a misunderstanding. I told her, "The only misunderstanding is you thinking I'll bail you out after you treated me like trash?" She started shouting that I was heartless, and neighbors began peeking into the hallway. I stepped back inside and shut the door. I didn't need more drama. Over the next week, I got updates from my dad about how her parents were under a company review. It had basically opened an entire can of worms. Managers and regular employees were coming forward with stories about how my ex's parents had bullied them, manipulated schedules, and acted like they owned the place. My dad wasn't the type to let that slide. He launched a formal investigation into their conduct. Suddenly, her parents went from smug to desperate. Then they tried a dirty move. They started spreading rumors in my local business circle that my startup was shady and that I was only afloat because my father funneled cash to me secretly. My friend in a local association told me about it, and I got so pissed. I realized they were trying to ruin my reputation, so I'd be forced to back down and let them off the hook. But they messed with the wrong guy. I immediately told my father, who got seriously angry. He said, "Now they're defaming our family. We might need legal measures." I asked him to gather evidence first, and he told me he'd already been building a file from the HR side, complaints, misconduct reports, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, I started documenting every rumor I heard. People who got an earful from them would call me or text me what was said. It all went into a neat little file I could show an attorney if it came to that. My father was furious they were dragging our family name through the mud. He asked me if I was comfortable taking legal steps, and I said sure. I wasn't about to let them smear me. They had no idea how well connected my dad was in the industry, and they were basically committing career suicide. The moment they realized we were collecting evidence, they panicked harder. My ex started messaging me again, claiming she had proof that it was all her parents doing, that she'd hand it over if I just helped them keep their jobs. I ignored her. I wasn't about to play that game. She even tried to say she still loved me and that we could work it out. Total BS. She never apologized for letting them rip me apart at that reunion. She only cared about saving their asses. Finally, The company review wrapped up. My dad told me her parents were demoted from their mid-level management positions. They weren't outright fired, but they lost their management roles and got put on some sort of probation. My dad explained that they had too many official complaints from employees to let them stay in power. It wasn't even about me. It was about their horrible track record. They were lucky to still have jobs at all, but apparently it was humiliating for them. Their pay dropped, they lost a bunch of perks, and they'd have to attend training sessions on harassment and ethics. If they didn't comply, they could resign. Obviously, they were furious and blamed me, saying I used personal revenge to ruin them. But from the company's standpoint, the evidence was rock solid. On top of that, my father and I sent them a cease and desist letter for slandering my startup. We made it clear that if they spread any more lies, we'd sue them for defamation. They freaked out, started telling everyone that I'd tricked them, that I'd set them up. But most people already knew how nasty they'd been for years. Even my ex's extended family members reached out to me, saying her parents had always been arrogant and rude. A cousin said he was actually glad someone finally stood up to them. My ex tried one last push, calling me repeatedly, saying her parents were being forced to downgrade their lifestyle and that it was ruining their mental health. She told me they might lose their apartment and begged me to talk to my father. I answered once just to say, they did this to themselves. You stood by them while they mocked me, so don't expect me to rescue any of you now. She started screaming and I hung up. I was done. My father even told me not to stress. He said, I'm proud you didn't use my name to get ahead, and I'm also proud you wouldn't let them bulldoze you. This is business and ethics, not personal revenge. Word around the company is that her parents are miserable. Some employees won't even speak to them unless it's strictly work-related, because they've made so many enemies over the years. At least now they're forced to follow the same rules as everyone else. My ex apparently had to move back in with them because she couldn't afford her own place. She tried texting me, claiming she was open to changing and that she regretted everything. I saw right through it. She was basically saying, I'll do anything if you fix our situation. Yeah, no thanks. My business, meanwhile, is finally turning a profit. I'm not rolling in money, but I'm secure enough to pay my bills, expand a little, and not stress 24/7. And now that I'm not dealing with my ex's constant negativity, I've got more energy to focus on growth. I picked up new clients, partner with local builders who appreciate my niche materials, and it feels so good to prove everyone wrong, especially those who said my startup was doomed. My father still checks in on me, but he respects that I'm paving my own way. I only go to him for advice, not handouts. That entire fiasco taught me a massive lesson about who to trust. My ex never once believed in me. She only liked the idea of me doing well, but the moment my bank account didn't match her standards, she switched from supportive to belittling. Her parents took it further, humiliating me just for kicks. And then, bam, turns out they'd spent years doing that to people at their workplace too. Karma caught up to them in a big way. Sure, I might sound cold about it, but I have zero regrets. They messed with me, tried to trash my name, and found out the hard way that I wasn't just some random small business owner they could stomp on. A few people on my side urged me to bury the hatchet, to be the bigger person, but they didn't stand there at that family reunion, listening to that humiliating speech on the microphone. Nobody stepped in to defend me that night, including my ex. Why would I bend over backwards for them now? Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people keep punching you in the face. They can live with the consequences. Now, I'm just focusing on moving forward. I'm single, less stressed, and feeling more motivated. My startup continues to grow. The drama with them has mostly died down, except for the occasional rumor I hear, which I just laugh off because nobody believes a word they say anymore. It's kind of hilarious how they went from smugly bragging about their stable jobs to scrambling to save their positions and reputation. I guess the moral here is never judge someone by their struggle face. You never know their real story or the connections they might have. Also, if you're a manager, don't be a jerk to your coworkers. You never know who might be watching. As for me, I'm content. My life is calmer, my business is on an upswing, and I got rid of a toxic girlfriend and her dreadful parents. It's a win all around. Sometimes, karma really does come around to bite the entitled. And if anyone reading this feels like they're being humiliated by people who don't know your full story, just remember you don't owe them a damn explanation. Sooner or later, they'll get what's coming to them. That's my story. Looking back, I can't believe how everything blew up, but I'm glad it did. They exposed their true colors before I wasted more time in that relationship. Now, I'm free to focus on myself and the people who genuinely support me. And honestly, I'm happier than I've been in a long time. Let them stew in their own mess. They made it after all. If they ever learn some humility from this, great. But that's their problem, not mine.